Hey, everybody, this is Trags, Mike Petraglia, alongside Richard Skinner of Local 12. We know him fondly as Skinny. This is the Jungle Roar Skinny Bengals postgame pod following a very impressive 24-6 win. At least the score would indicate that. 24-6 win over the Cleveland Browns Sunday afternoon, keeping the Bengals playoff hopes alive. They improved to 7-8, and lo and behold, Skinny, the Bengals are on a 3-game winning streak for the first time this year. How about that?
Yeah, it's funny, Mike, because it felt like this part of the schedule is where this was going to the dam was going to break in that favor. And now you look back at all the what could have been, the Charger game, the Baltimore game at Baltimore, the New England game, the Ryan Rico messing up the snap game against Baltimore earlier this year. I mean, just turn two of those around and you literally control your own destiny. Actually, you probably are in the mix for the AFC North title if you turn three of those things around. But you are what you are, and they sit at 7-8. And, now you got to fight and you got to claw. And while we've all looked at the whole Denver scenario of, they got to lose out, Bengals got to win out, the one that's just really scary if you're a Bengals fan is the rug getting pulled out from under you is the Colts not losing again because their schedule is just so bad.
Yeah, and who do they have left in the final 2 weeks? Because they held on today against Tennessee.
Held on is the right word. It was 38-7.
They were up 38-7, yeah, and it turned into a one-score game. But Indianapolis has 2 more games remaining, one of which I believe is against Jacksonville.
Yeah, the last game's Jacksonville at home, and they're at the Giants the week before this coming week. I mean, you talk about a layup, man. You got a layup. If you're Indy and you don't make it now, shame on you. And they still may not make it because Denver could still ace them out too if they beat the Bengals. But if you don't make it, if the Bengals beat Denver, shame on you.
So let's move on to, like we normally do, Joe Burrow. He made more history on Sunday afternoon in the win, the 24-6 victory over the Cleveland Browns. Not only was Joe Burrow 23 of 30, 252 yards, and 3 touchdowns, but it was the 7th consecutive game, Skinny, that he threw for at least 3 touchdowns and at least 250 yards, breaking the old record of one Tom Brady. And it came on a play dedicated to one of the great adult beverages that we know. And I don't know what's in that mug, but the play they ran was called whiskey.
Yeah.
And there's so many angles of this story that I love. First of all, that Jamar Chase was trying to give Jermaine Burton a little PP, as he said in the press conference, a little playing time. And as it turned out, Troy Walters, the wide receiver coach, told Jamar, you may want to go back in for this one. And knowing what was at stake, obviously, and knowing what Jamar was trying to do as well in terms of reaching some touchdown numbers. But it was the touchdown, and the touchdown pass of 32 yards not only established Joe Burrow's record, but it also put Jamar Chase over 1,500 yards for the first time in his career. There's so much there to unpack, Skinny.
Yeah, and so, Jamar goes over the 1,500-yard mark. Earlier in the game, he had set the single-season franchise record mark with a catch in the second quarter. He needed 50 yards. Actually, that got him to 50 yards. He needed, 42 yards to go over it. That got him a 50th yard. That was enough. And then the touchdown pass you're referring to got him over 1,500 yards. He's now at 16 touchdown receptions, one short of Carl Pickens' franchise record that he set in 1995 with 17. And it got Joe to the mark you talked about. And while, as you know, Trags, coaches and players never like to talk about milestones and records, and I get it, and there's probably some small truth to that. There's an old high school coach at the place I coach high school basketball now at Beechwood, Mike Yeagle, and Mike had great teams. And Mike, when I was covering preps, I always asked Mike, why don't you let your guys go for this many yards or that many yards? He goes, man, if they want to go for those yards, they can go for it in the course of the game. And I'm like, that's a good call. And I don't know if this was in the course of the game or not. I'm not blaming anybody for this. I'm not. I don't want to poo-poo what they did. But you're at the 32. You can run out the clock. If you don't, you can go for it on 4th down. They got 20 seconds to go. The game is in hand. and you draw them off sides, and they did. Myles Garrett clearly jumps. That's not even in doubt. And they get a free play, and you take the free play and take the shot. It felt like they tried to set the big play up for that. Like, if we get him to jump, hence we got whatever whiskey is. Whiskey's got to be some kind of call of, we're going to get a guy to jump, and if not, and you're in man coverage, you just streak down the field because they're trying to stop the run. There's got to be a nuance to that I don't know about, and I probably should know about, but I think I know about, and it's, I jumps offside, just run deep, and we're going to throw it deep. And if we don't get the touchdown, well, they'll call a penalty. And, it got me over a threshold, and it gets you closer to a threshold. Again, I'm not blaming anybody for it, but it sure seemed odd, Mike, in the moment that you're throwing a deep ball at the 32-yard line up 17-6 when 2 runs and maybe a first down calls it a day.
I also think there is this. They have both had sensational years, and I think they have both earned the right.
I agree.
To have a moment of personal glory and of personal achievement.
Yeah.
Within, like your coach was saying, within the context of the game, if you're able to achieve something, in this particular case, it absolutely put the lid on the game and made it 24-6. Go ahead, Skinny.
The only contradictory thing I would ask you, Mike, and I'll give my answer to this. Did it feel like that was a stage of running it up? I get the NFL is not a running it up league, but did it feel like that? Because there's a part of me that if you were on the other sideline and go, what are you doing? You're really going to throw a touchdown pass on us now? Again, I'm not poo-pooing this by any stretch, but I can see the other side that goes, what are you doing? Are you running it up?
Well, here's and certainly they are. They're trying to score. But my point to that is, for instance, when Myles Garrett was finishing the tackle on Joe Burrow, and he drives him into the ground out of bounds.
Way out of bounds.
Well, I mean, I will tell you this, and Joe Burrow was pretty thoughtful in the press conference when asked specifically about that play. He said, I'd have to go back and look at it, but I don't really have a big problem with it. I'm paraphrasing here. And I actually thought he started to grab Burrow, did Myles Garrett, with like a foot still on the green. And it looks so bad. Here's my problem with that. And I'm going off the beaten track.
No, I know where you're going. Yeah, you're good.
If he is in the pocket and that same play is made and he comes down on Joe Burrow that same way, it's roughing the passer. Well, if Joe Burrow's a running back, there's no roughing the passer. He's running out of bounds. And if he gets him before he gets out of bounds, the defensive player can apply as much pain and wants to the quarterback especially, to let him feel it for the rest of the game.
Yeah, you're in such a gray area there, right? And we've talked to Zach Taylor about this, about guys who get to that big white. People see that big white sideline, right? And it was close. I thought Joe was a step from the area, half a step from the area. Did Myles need to do that? No. Was it in the rules? Yeah, it probably was, because Joe was still technically in bounds. But we've also seen quarterbacks who occasionally will go, I'm going to go out here. Oh, no, I'm not. I'm going to go out. And Pat Mahomes is a genius at that. He's really good at getting to the white and going, well, I'll sneak up here for 3 more yards, and then I'll go to the white. I don't know how the NFL fixes that portion of it. Like, if you have a foot on the white and you're hit, is that a penalty? And maybe it needs to be, because that could have been, you're right, to your point, that could have been really a bad ending for Joe Burrow. I mean, we all, I think, in the press box, we're not supposed to wince or talk, or we're not rooting for anybody, but I think I even let out a ooh. I mean, because it was like, that's so close. And I'll give Joe credit. He pops up. He runs he runs away from the sideline. I think we were all waiting for offensive linemen to maybe go take umbrage with that and start a fight. And I know everybody likes that because it's faux tough guy. Like, why is the offensive line not protecting him? No, you know what? To hell with that. It's close. It's borderline. Your quarterback's okay. If the quarterback wasn't okay, then I'm beating his ass. But if the quarterback's fine, he pops up, I'm going to pop up and run with him. And Joe runs across the field, and they'll run right behind him. So I got no problem with that. But there's a part of me that looked and went, that rule's, there's got to be a way to change that rule for everybody's benefit. And I'm not a big soft, like, let's protect everybody guy. It's tackle football at the end of the day. Right. But that's one that's so close that you don't need any needless injury.
So I guess my long-winded, rationalizing way of looking at that last play, 32 yards, Burrow to Chase, is, well, if Myles Garrett can come down on him with full force, then what should keep Joe Burrow from, in terms of using the scoreboard to inflict the same kind of pain. Hey, okay, you can come down on me with 270 pounds and try to drive me into the cement, field turf, if you will. But I'm going to try to inflict some pain here on the scoreboard, even if it's, 90 seconds to go in the game, because there is a purpose to doing it.
And guess who jumped off sides? It was Myles Garrett. What a perfect symmetry to that of, I got you, and I'm going to throw this. Again, trust me, I'm not here to do the whole run it up thing. It just felt very interesting that all of a sudden at the end of the day, you look and you go, I gave Joe 252. I gave him 3. There's a record at stake. And if Chase Brown had run for 11 yards the play before, Mike, it would have mattered because he wouldn't have gone over 252. So the fact that, Chase got whatever he got, and they ran a play, it wasn't like they said, Chase, go for 3 yards and slide down because we want Joe to get this record and we're going to do it. They didn't do that, but it just felt like, okay, they're going to take a shot at this now that they're in a spot where, okay, a few more seconds have ticked off the clock. If something weird happens, we're still okay. Again, I'm not blaming anybody for it. It just felt interesting. So, like I said, the column I wrote was basically that being an interesting play and the Joe Burrow parallel to the ground, landing on, literally face planting and throwing a touchdown pass. I was not in for the T. Higgins interview. I heard a couple of the quotes from it. I wish I had been. I was somewhere else. And, oh, my word, if you can give the quote in the context and the in the family-friendly way it was said, and it was said, I thought, in a great way from what I understand.
So I will bring up my own tweet.
Okay, great. I'm glad I could set you up for this.
Thank you for doing that, Skinny. That's why I need a partner like you, a partner in crime.
Yep.
Because you are so good at what you do in terms of making sure that I get the content out there as much as I can. And I'm vamping here
you're good.
To pull up the quote.
We got
Here's
time.
The quote
yes.
From T. Higgins. MFer
looked
like Superman when he threw it. I'm calling him Superman from this point on. F Batman, Superman.
That's great. It's so good.
Quote.
So good. I think it's one of the
T.
It is literally, I wish I'd been there. I was at another place in the locker room at that point, and I can't remember who told me that quote. It wasn't you, because it was somebody else, but I went, oh my gosh, that's so darn good, because it conveys that whole play. And every Bengals fan that's watching us now, and thank you for watching us now, has seen the play. I just don't know if everybody can appreciate the play, because he gets tripped up. In theory, you thought, well, he landed on his knee and he's down, but he tripped over his own guy. And I thought initially he flipped it before he fell. And he really didn't. He flipped it as his knee and his body hits, and then he flips it for a touchdown. It's ridiculous.
The other irony of that, and T. Higgins told us this in his scrum session post-game, he was the final read on the progression.
That's incredible.
Think about that. He's going through, I guess, 3 reads before he finds
and you can see him, and Mike, you can see him like his eyes darting around, and then finally, I got to go make a play. I got to get flushed. That's incredible. He was the last read on that play, and it hits.
That's just great. And look, I know it's a microcosm, but this game to me is a microcosm of why T. Higgins and Jamar Chase want to stay in Cincinnati and play with Joe Burrow. I think if you ask them both, you're like, dude, we got a good thing going. T is going to get his money. He probably will get a 9-figure contract. Maybe it's here, maybe it's somewhere else. But I think he would like, if he had his druthers and most things were equal, he would rather stay here with Jamar and Joe because they've got a good thing going.
I agree with that. I'm still of the ilk of, I'm not sure how much money I'm allocating to wide receivers when I got other roster spots to fill, but I think it's a fair point on their part of it of, like to say, let's see if we can make this work. And hopefully they can, because you get those 3 guys together. When T plays, they win. In fact, I used to keep it. I can't remember what it is now. I think they're 6-3 with T, 7-3 with T, 6-4, whatever it is. They have a winning record with T in the lineup. And granted, some of it is, and you'll agree with this, the games he's played for whatever reason have been against bad teams on their schedule. I mean, they have owned bad teams. They still don't have a win over a team with a above 500 record. We're going to find out what they can do when they face Denver, but they're clearly better with those. You can't cover both of them. I mean, they have the Browns have Denzel Ward. Denzel Ward can take a dude away. I mean, Andre Yoshevich actually caught a deep ball on him on a deep out today. But Denzel Ward can take a dude away. And they still, both of them, T goes 8 for 58. 58 sounds pedestrian, but the 8 is part of the offense. And Jamar goes 6 for 97. So 14 for 155 between two receivers, pretty darn good.
Yeah, and I think that is something that is not only great for Jamar and T, it's great for Burrow and Zach Taylor because they can rely on that. Okay, we've talked a lot about the offense.
Yep.
I want to get to the defense. And one of my favorite moments covering the Bengals for the last, I'd say, 4 years, ever since the Super Bowl run and the AFC Championship run in 22, was Christmas Eve 2022, back in my old stomping grounds.
Ramondre Stevenson, baby.
And Von Bell literally, and Joe Burrow talked about this postgame today, punches the ball out from Ramondre Stevenson. Otherwise, the Bengals blow a 22-0 lead and would have lost that game at Gillette Stadium. And who knows what kind of momentum that would have ended their big winning streak. And who knows what the team's mindset would have been after that game. But as it turned out, Bengals held on to win that game because of Von Bell. Fast forward almost 2 years to the day. Here, December 22nd, 2024, Bengals need the win. And to start the game, Jerome Ford, very first play from scrimmage, rips off a 66-yard run, almost untouched through the right side of the Cleveland offensive line. Rips off that run. 3 plays later, the Browns are knocking at the doorstep. They hand it off to Deontay Freeman. And Bell is, again, Johnny on the spot, pokes the ball out, not only forces the fumble, recovers the fumble, and the Bengals march 99 yards for a 7-0 score. It was the most important play of the game, correct?
Yeah. So when I went to the locker room today, that was my intent to write that. I'm going to write that tomorrow. I wrote the whole, Burrow and Chase in the record, and that
Sure.
they were so interesting. I'm like, I got to write this. But so you were in the scrum with me and Von Bell. Talked to Mike Hilton, and I wanted the quote that I got from Mike, which I said, for a guy who's been through what Von's been, he might have been in that one too. He said, he's just a pro's pro. He's going to make a play when he's got a chance to make a play, and that's what we admire about him. And I'm like, that's literally the quote I wanted, because that's exactly what Von Bell was. He's had his playing time stripped. He's a proud guy, as we know, works so hard, always the first one in, and he could stop doing all those things. He could go, screw this. They're paying me. This might be my last year in the NFL. If not, I'll go get a contract from somebody else for a year. But to hell with this place. And he didn't. They put him in the goal line. And dude makes a play where he punches the ball out. And I don't know if it changed the game, Mike, because I don't know if Cleveland was good enough to really win that game. I don't. But it changed the momentum of that game, especially when the offense then goes 99 yards. And that spoke volumes to me of what Von is, of he knows how to be a playmaker, A. B, he's clearly a pro, where, again, he could be in there and going, I'm in the goal line. They're going to score. I'll do my job to some degree. He did his job to some degree. He punched it out. And I even said, when do you know how to punch it out? He said, see daylight in the ball. And if you look back at it, there is a little bit of daylight in the ball. And I thought the nuance of that is that's just genius, because how do you know when to make a tackle or go punch it? And he saw enough daylight to go, I'm going to punch it. Punches it, recovers it, the whole shebang. It was a great play. And like I said, I truly wanted to write about that and what Jordan Battle did, and Geno Stone kind of nuanced it into what the 3 safeties did as far as turnovers did. But I can't be more impressed with Von. I thought Zach's answer in the post game when I asked him about what the significance of that was, he knew. You could tell when I asked, he's like, I know what you're asking me, and I'm going to answer this in the right way to give you a good quote, because that's how much Von means to them. Yep. And they know that, listen, we had to pull him because he's just not the same guy. We had to get new blood in there because he's not the same guy. But boy, do we appreciate that guy. And they should, because that was a heck of a play.
So Mike Hilton said, and he summed it up perfectly, that's just Von being Von. The interesting part of today, I thought, Skinny, was the fact that the player that replaced Von Bell also made a critical contribution with an end zone interception, a red zone end zone interception of Dorian Thompson-Robinson, and when it was 17-6. And if the Browns go in for a touchdown there,
who knows?
And who knows? It's probably 17-14 if they get the 2-point conversion. Then you're talking about a field goal game, and the Bengals. It wasn't so much about the Browns. It was, can the Browns get the Bengals to start questioning themselves? And if Jordan Battle doesn't make that pick and smartly is told and screamed at to sit your butt down in the end zone and take the touchback, if that play doesn't happen, who knows what the last 10 minutes of the game is like.
And back to the other point, Mike, is if they score that first touchdown, who knows what the rest of the game is like. Again, it's a long game. Joe Burrow is going to do Joe Burrow things, and they probably still find a way to win that just because he was going to still do Joe Burrow things. But yeah, and the Jordan Battle play. And guess who also makes the play on that? As much as we've talked about. So here's the thing. So this is why I had this in my head. I'm like, this is a perfect column. I'm going to write this about the safeties. And then all of a sudden the Joe or the Jamar Joe stuff in the postgame, like, yeah. So Geno Stone has a play on that play. They run literally an all-out blitz, a zero-cover blitz. And who's in the face of Dorian Thompson-Robinson? And part of this is you go, well, that's easy. It's not easy. Sometimes you blitz, you don't get home. Geno Stone is right in his lap. And Dorian has to go, either he probably should have eaten it and kicked the field goal. He chose not to eat it. He's a young quarterback, doesn't know any better. And he just goes, I'm going to sling it up for grabs. And then there is Jordan Battle for the interception in the end zone. So both those guys. And then later in the half, Geno Stone makes an interception off a tip ball from DJ Ivey. And that's again, this is a bad team. Cleveland's a bad team. Dorian Thompson-Robinson's a bad quarterback. But you still have to make plays, and they made plays that were significant to win the game.
One other thing that Mike Hilton told me post-game, Skinny, was that ever since Lou Anarumo simplified defensive calls, the Bengals defense is communicating and playing much better. And I said, what does that mean, Mike? And he said, well, instead of having 2 or 3 calls on off one play, or 2 or 3 possibilities off one defensive call, they're going with the call, they're staying with the call, they're getting their communication down, and then it's jailbreak, whoever's supposed to go to the quarterback, get the quarterback. They're playing more man, not entirely man defense,
right?
But they're playing more man,
right?
And with Lou Anarumo doing that, it seems like the aggressiveness, at least in the pass defense, has returned, and I think it's paying dividends in the turnovers we've seen the last 2 games.
Yeah, and I agree with that wholeheartedly. I know people are going to look and go, it's Will Levis, it's Dorian Thompson-Robinson. Right. But still, you have to go make plays. You can't just let Will Levis do what he needs to do and Dorian Thompson-Robinson play games he wants. No, you have to go do it, and I think that's the big part of this. Yes, there's always the yin and the yang, and the yin is they're making great plays. The yang is, well, you're playing crap quarterbacks. Right. And I get that. I do, but you still have to go make plays. I mean, it's not like you're playing some FBS or whatever. You're not playing, North Dakota State, even though they're really good, mind you, and their league, they're Montana State, and they're really, really good in the league they're in. But you're still playing NFL guys, but still, you have to go make those plays, and they're making them of late, and kudos to them. And now you play a winning team with a quarterback that's might have hit a little bit of a rookie wall, but he's played really well. But still, now let's see this carry over to the last 2. And does it save Lou Anarumo's job? I don't know. Does it get you in the playoffs? I don't know. But let's see what you do. And if you finish 9-8, it sucks because you're going to look back at that New England game and go, what in the heck happened there? And that's the one. I mean, that felt like at the time, Mike, that felt like at the time, that's the one.
So, Skinny, I don't know if you recall this, but I told Paul Dehner Jr. on his podcast, he said, is there any must win on the schedule? And I said, yeah, the first game of the year.
And it sounds like a joke.
Everybody laughed and said, oh, the first game of the season, you're calling that a must win. I'm like, yep, because if you lose to that
amalgamation
New England team at home to open the season, you are no question going to look back on it and wonder what might have been. And as it turned out with this season, they win that single game, the game they lost 16-10 to Gerard Mayo's Patriots at home at Paycor. with I guess that was the orange out game, right? The first orange out
whatever
game.
It was.
Whatever it was, there was hype built around the game.
Yeah, it was orange out because orange is fierce and strong and shut up and just go win the game.
And they didn't. And that, to me, is going to be the game everybody looks back on. It should be the game everybody looks back on because Skinny, again, the team wasn't ready. But on this day against an inferior team, they took care of business 24-6. 7-1, Skinny. 7-0 since that loss against teams with a losing record.
Yeah, and that doesn't say much because if you think you're a playoff caliber team, you should beat those teams. But that said, it shows you this is probably a team, unfortunately, because they are 0 and whatever against teams with above 500 records, right, Mike? This will tell you this is a team that probably is in the middle. And maybe that's the lesson that's learned. Now, the middle might still get you home. And for Bengals fans, I hope it does get them home. But I think it also shows you you're way better than the worst, and you're just not quite as good against the best because the records show that. Various reasons, different circumstances. But to Bill Parcells' point, your record is what your record says it is. And I think that's where this team is. You can argue it's above the middle line a little bit, but maybe not by much. And maybe the Denver game changes that. Maybe the Pittsburgh game changes that. Finish off with 2 wins against teams above 500 in all likelihood, 2 playoff teams, or at least one, and one that's fighting for a playoff berth, then okay, then you can feel a little bit better. But I think you're going to feel a little bit worse, to your point, because how in the world did you have that one on the right-hand side, the loss side of the New England game? That's insane to me.
What did you take away from the second half of the Broncos-Chargers game on Thursday night? The fact that the Broncos were in control of that game, 21-10, before they hit the free kick for the field goal to make it 21-13.
That I'm not quite so sure that Bo Nix and his crew are ready to win quality games on the road. Again, we can argue, are the Bengals a quality opponent? They're a sub-500 team. And the Chargers are above 500 team. But that said to me that they're not quite ready for this yet. And that's why I feel bullish about the Bengals winning this game and going to Pittsburgh to play meaningful football. Now, the Indy road looks really easy at the moment. And that's what may stink is that's the game that you're focusing on the Denver situation, and Denver goes to Kansas City. And even if Kansas City plays backups, they win, and you go to Pittsburgh and win. And oh, by the way, there's Indy going, we won all 3 of ours. Night, night. And that's the thing that scares me a little bit.
Yeah. And I guess Miami, if the Bengals finish tied.
Yes. It's a weird circumstance. Spell it out. Yeah, it's so weird.
The multiple
tiebreakers are crazy.
Tiebreakers
the multiple tiebreakers are crazy. I will say this. I'd have to look, and we'll probably all write this week. The Bengals still have a chance to have 2 more AFC wins with Denver and Pittsburgh, and that might get them in some multi-level tiebreaker if there's 4 of them, for all I know.
Right.
I don't think it does. I looked at this a couple of weeks ago, and I thought I did the math right, and I didn't write it, but maybe I didn't do the math right. Bottom line is, just keep winning, and then all you can do is hope, because that's the position you put yourself in. Because you know why, Mike? Because go back to the New England game and you lost it.
Indeed. I thought Zach's message after the game about they're finally playing the kind of football that they know they can play. Some fans are going to find that hollow.
Yeah.
I think he's right. I think they've always felt confident in their ability, which is what Zach Taylor said
very much so
today after the game. They very much feel confident they can play with anybody and beat anybody in the NFL. They just haven't been able to do it yet. So this Saturday afternoon is going to be, to me, a fascinating game at Paycor Stadium. It is a game where I do think the Bengals have to play from ahead. Now, they played from ahead against Washington, lost. Played from ahead against Pittsburgh, lost. Played from ahead against Philadelphia, lost.
The Baltimore game, the Baltimore
and the 2
overtime
Baltimore
loss.
games,
yeah,
and lost. So, yeah, it's important to get out to the lead, but I just think against a team like Denver at home, you want to let everybody in the building know that you're there to win the game. That's all.
And you got a rookie quarterback on the road who, again, he's been great. I mean, good for Sean Payton, who's just taken that kid and they've taken it and run with it. And it shows you what kind of a coach Sean Payton is. Don't have to like him. He's a goof nut, but he's a good coach. He's a good coach. He's a good coach. And so, yeah, get ahead of the rookie quarterback and say, kid, come try to win coming from behind on the road. And I think the crowd will be crazy because they know what's at stake. So, yeah, I think it will be a fun game. And that, as goofy as it sounds, you want this team to be a playoff team. You want this team to be a Super Bowl caliber team. But I'm a big believer in just give me some meaningful football when it matters. And we're 2 weeks left in the season, and you got meaningful football, and you win this game. Whatever happens in week 18, there's a lot of scenarios. You're playing meaningful football in week 18 too, in a season that's felt lost since the bye week, Mike, even before that. And here they are playing meaningful football still. Good for them.
So you already told us what you're working on for Monday, Skinny, the defensive story. Anything else we should be looking for on local12.com?
Yeah, that's probably it. I probably do a playoff scenario story like we all will do for Tuesday, and then it's Christmas Eve, and we're going to be down there gathering some information. And guess what? After I gather the information I gather on Christmas Eve, I'm not writing a thing until Thursday. And hopefully nobody else is either.
Well, I want to wish you a Merry Christmas.
You too.
Same to your family. It's been a fun first year together with you, Skinny. Hopefully
great.
There's many more of these to come. We know we have at least 2 more of these Jungle Roar Skinny Bengals post-game pods in front of us. I want to wish all of our loyal subscribers and followers and listeners and viewers a very Merry Christmas this week. Everybody stay safe, and look forward to seeing you, Skinny, on Saturday when the Bengals play in week number 17, game number 16 of the season. Bengals are now 7-8 on the season. Be sure to follow all of Skinny's stuff at local12.com. Follow him on the X at local12skinny. You can follow me at Trags, Trags on the X. Of course, CLNS Cincy with a Y.com. And you know the YouTube page by now, at least I hope you do. It is youtube.com/@JungleRoarPod. For Richard Skinner, I'm Mike Petraglia, Trags. Have a very merry and safe Christmas week. And we'll talk to you next Saturday after the Bengals Broncos. Take care, everybody.